The Roy Orbison Mystery. Finally solved and isn't good. Roy Orbison, born on April 23, 1936, in Vernon, Texas, was an American singer-songwriter celebrated for his powerful voice, dark sunglasses, and emotionally charged ballads, nicknamed the Caruso of rock for his operatic vocal style. Orbison rose to fame in the early 1960s with hits such as Only the Lonely, Crying, and Oh Pretty Woman. Despite enduring personal tragedies, including the loss of his wife and children, Orbison continued creating timeless music. He later found renewed success in the 1980s as part of the supergroup Traveling Wilburys. His artistry and haunting voice left an enduring mark on rock and roll history. The early steps into music, the story of Roy Orbison's music career begins long before he became the darkly dressed, haunting voice of rock and roll. Born into a modest family in Vernon, Texas, Orbison's first connection to music was deeply personal. At just 6 years old, his father gifted him a small guitar, an instrument that would shape the rest of his life. The young Roy quickly took to it, practicing obsessively and finding in music both joy and identity. By the time he was 8 years old, he was already performing on a local radio station, his delicate yet powerful voice standing out among children his age. Orbison's early influences were as diverse as they were profound. He admired the heartfelt storytelling of Hank Williams, the smooth crooning of Bing Crosby, and the passionate devotion of Southern gospel music. These influences created a foundation for his unique style, a blend of country sorrow, pop elegance, and operatic emotion, unlike many of his peers who leaned heavily into rockabilly rebellion. Orbison gravitated towards songs that carried deep emotional resonance, foreshadowing the ballads that would later define his career. In high school, Orbison began to take his passion more seriously. He formed his first band, the Wink Westerners, named after his hometown of Wink, Texas. The group played a mix of country standards, Western swing, and popular hits of the day, performing at school dances and local events. The Wink Westerners gave Orbison his first taste of being a band leader and entertainer. His voice, distinctive, soaring, and already tinged with melancholy, made the group stand out, and soon they secured regular slots on local radio. Through these beginnings, Orbison's path became clear. Music was not simply a pastime, but a calling, one that combined the intimacy of his earliest guitar lessons with the grandeur of the artists he admired. The seeds of his later greatness were already planted. The young boy with the guitar would one day become the man who redefined the emotional possibilities of rock and roll, shaping his own sound. After the early days with the Wink Westerners, Roy Orbison's path led him to Sun Records in the late 1950s, the same label that had launched Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Jerry Lee Lewis. Yet Orbison's time there was marked by frustration. His singles failed to chart, and his delicate, emotional singing style did not fit the raw, rockabilly-driven sound Sun was famous for. Many dismissed him as too unconventional, too soft for the rebellious energy of the era. But Orbison refused to give up. He believed in his voice and in his ability to tell stories through music. The real breakthrough came in the early 1960s, when Orbison signed with Monument Records under the guidance of a visionary producer, Fred Foster. Foster recognized what others had overlooked. Orbison's strength lay not in copying the wild energy of rockabilly, but in embracing the unique blend of rock, pop, country, and classical influences that flowed naturally from his voice. Together, they crafted songs that defied traditional structures, often building to powerful crescendos more reminiscent of opera than of standard rock tunes. Orbison's vocal ability became his ultimate trademark. With a range spanning 3 octaves, he could move from a gentle whisper to soaring high notes in the same song. evoking vulnerability and power in equal measure. This versatility gave his recordings a haunting, timeless quality. His style was unlike anything else on the radio, and by refusing to conform, he carved out his own space in popular music. The results were extraordinary. Between 1960 and 1965, Orbison released a string of hits that remain classics. Only the Lonely established him as a force. Crying showcased his raw emotional depth. Running Scared built tension into a dramatic climax that left listeners breathless. In Dreams was dreamlike and surreal, pushing the boundaries of pop structure, and Oh Pretty Woman, 1964, became his signature anthem, topping charts worldwide and selling millions of copies. These songs were not just hits. They redefined what a rock ballad could be, proving that emotion, vulnerability, and operatic scope could coexist with popular success. Through these innovations, Roy Orbison became known as the Caruso of rock. He stood apart in an era dominated by leather jackets and swagger, offering instead a vision of rock and roll that was deeply romantic, melancholic, and majestic. His career turning point at Monument Records transformed him from a struggling Sun Records artist into an international star whose voice and song still resonate across generations. Image and rebirth. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, Roy Orbison's career had slowed dramatically. After years of delivering timeless hits in the early 1960s, personal tragedies, including the loss of his wife and 2 sons, combined with changing musical trends, left him in the shadows. His haunting ballads, once revolutionary, no longer dominated the charts during an era that celebrated disco, glam, and hard rock. Orbison, once a pioneer of emotional rock ballads, seemed to fade into obscurity. Yet part of what kept him unforgettable was his mysterious image. Unlike other performers of his time who smiled broadly and sought flamboyance, Orbison became known for his signature look, all-black clothing, dark sunglasses, and a near-motionless stage presence, rarely showing overt emotion on stage. He let his voice do all the work. This visual persona, combined with his operatic 3-octave range, earned him the nickname the Caruso of rock. While some mistook his stillness for coldness, it only amplified the drama of his music, making each performance feel like an intimate confession. By the 1980s, music had shifted again, and a younger generation of artists began to rediscover Orbison's genius. Figures like Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, and Bono of U2 openly hailed him as a profound influence, citing his ballads as blueprints for blending vulnerability with rock energy. This wave of admiration set the stage for Orbison's revival. In 1987, he received a Grammy Award for his duet with K.D. Lang on Crying, proving that his voice still carried unparalleled emotional power. That same year, the concert special, Roy Orbison and Friends: A Black and White Night, brought him back into the spotlight with a star-studded lineup including Springsteen, Tom Waits, and Bonnie Raitt standing by his side in reverence. Orbison's 1980s revival re-established him as a timeless artist, showcasing authenticity, resilience, and emotion, culminating in collaborations with the Traveling Wilburys. From Wilburys to fame, by the late 1980s, Roy Orbison had already experienced a remarkable career revival. But perhaps the crowning moment of his resurgence came in 1988 when he joined forces with some of the greatest names in rock history to form the Traveling Wilburys. Alongside George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne, Orbison became part of a supergroup that blended legendary talents into one collective. The project was not planned as a grand industry move. It began almost casually. with Harrison and Lynn inviting friends to collaborate. Yet with Orbison's haunting voice anchoring their harmonies, the group became nothing less than a cultural phenomenon. Their debut, Traveling Wilburys Volder 1, released in 1988, was both a critical and commercial triumph. Songs like Handle with Care and End of the Line showcased Orbison's ability to merge seamlessly with other legends while still standing out with his operatic timbre. The album's warmth, humor, and sense of camaraderie offered a refreshing contrast to the heavily produced sound dominating the era. It went on to win a Grammy Award and achieved multi-platinum sales, reaffirming Orbison's place not just as a figure of nostalgia, but as a contemporary force in global music. That same year, Orbison received one of the highest honors in the industry. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. At the ceremony, Bruce Springsteen delivered a tribute that captured the essence of Orbison's artistry, calling him the voice of brokenheartedness. Springsteen highlighted how Orbison's songs transcended simple pop formulas, embodying longing, sorrow, and the grandeur of operatic tragedy. For many, this recognition was long overdue, but its timing, just as Orbison was re-emerging, felt especially poignant. Tragically, Orbison's time with the Traveling Wilburys was short-lived. He died suddenly in December 1988, only weeks after the release of Volume 1. Yet his involvement in the group ensured that his final chapter was one of triumph rather than obscurity. Through the Wilburys, Orbison was introduced to a younger audience who may not have grown up with "Oh, Pretty Woman" or "Crying," but who now discovered the timeless voice that had captivated earlier generations. In the end, the Traveling Wilburys were more than a supergroup. They were the vehicle that delivered Roy Orbison's ultimate recognition as a global icon, his induction into the Hall of Fame, the praise from peers like Springsteen, and the worldwide success of the Wilburys cemented his legacy as one of the most distinctive and emotionally powerful voices in music history. Enduring legacy. Even after Roy Orbison's untimely death in 1988, his music continued to resonate and evolve, keeping his legacy alive for generations. One of the most significant posthumous milestones was the release of his acclaimed album Mystery Girl in 1989, which included hits like You Got It, decades later. In 2014, the album was reissued as Mystery Girl Deluxe, offering fans a deeper look into Orbison's artistry. Among the treasures was a previously unreleased track, The Way Is Love, a song that carried special emotional weight, originally recorded as a rough demo. The song was lovingly completed by Orbison's three sons, Wesley, Roy Jr., and Alex, who added their harmonies and instrumentation to their father's voice. This collaboration created a profound connection between past and present, ensuring that Orbison's music was not only preserved, but also renewed through his family's involvement. For fans, hearing Orbison's unmistakable vocals alongside the contributions of his children was both haunting and heartwarming, a reminder that while the man himself was gone, his influence and spirit lived on. The project highlighted Orbison's unique gift for blending vulnerability with strength, cementing his reputation as one of rock's most emotionally powerful voices. Through reissues, tributes, and unreleased recordings, Roy Orbison's legacy remains vibrant. His music continues to inspire new generations, proving that true artistry transcends time. Mystery Girl Deluxe and The Way Is Love stand as testaments to an artist whose voice could never be silenced, bridging the gap between memory and modernity. Family tragedies. Behind Roy Orbison's soaring voice and timeless hits lay a series of devastating family tragedies that shaped his life and music. In 1957, Orbison married Claudette Frady, and together they had three sons, Wesley, Roy Jr., and Anthony. but happiness proved fleeting. In 1966, Claudette died in a motorcycle accident while riding with Roy, leaving him shattered just 2 years later. In 1968, disaster struck again when a fire consumed the Orbison family home in Tennessee. His 2 eldest sons, Roy Jr. and Anthony, were killed, while Wesley, the youngest, survived. These unimaginable losses marked Orbison forever. His grief and heartbreak became etched into his songs, giving them their haunting, melancholic power. Tracks like Crying and It's Over were not just performances, but emotional reflections of a man who knew suffering intimately. While his career reached great heights, these personal tragedies followed him throughout his life, adding depth to his music and transforming him into not just a singer of love songs, but a voice of sorrow and resilience. Second marriage. After years of personal tragedy, Roy Orbison found a renewed sense of stability in 1969 when he married Barbara Jacobs, a German-born music executive. Unlike his first marriage, marked by both love and heartbreak, his union with Barbara provided not only companionship, but also professional grounding. Barbara became both his emotional anchor and career manager, helping him navigate the ups and downs of the music industry. Together, they had 2 sons, Roy Jr., born 1970, and Alex, born 1975, bringing new joy and a sense of family to Orbison's life after so much loss. Barbara's influence gave Roy the foundation he needed to focus on his artistry and later enjoy his career revival in the 1980s. Even after Orbison's sudden death in 1988, Barbara continued to safeguard his legacy, overseeing reissues, posthumous releases, and ensuring his image remained respected worldwide. Her devotion kept Orbison's music alive for new generations and cemented her role not just as his wife, but as the guardian of his memory. Hidden truths of fame. Behind Roy Orbison's haunting voice and mysterious stage presence lay a reality shaped by deep pain and hidden scars. While the world admired his iconic look, black clothing, dark sunglasses, and a reserved demeanor, these elements were not just artistic choices, but reflections of a life touched by trauma. Biographers later revealed that Orbison had endured untreated psychological wounds from childhood, experiences that left him shy and withdrawn even as fame surrounded him. His melancholy image, so closely tied to his music, was in many ways an extension of that early vulnerability. Adding to this burden, Orbison as a teenager underwent a series of experimental sinus surgeries that were intended to improve his health, but instead caused long-term discomfort. Some researchers believe these procedures may have inadvertently altered the resonance of his vocal structure, contributing to his remarkable 3-octave range, yet they also left him with physical pain, reinforcing his tendency to live a private, restrained life. Thus, the sorrow etched into his songs was not mere performance, it was born from lived experience. The Caruso of rock stood on stage as both legend and wounded man, channeling his hidden struggles into music that touched millions with its raw honesty. Silent struggles revealed. Behind Roy Orbison's powerful voice and stoic stage persona lay a man fighting private battles few ever saw. Though the public knew him as the Caruso of rock, journals and testimonies later revealed that Orbison often lived in emotional collapse, struggling with depression and inner turmoil. To cope, he increasingly relied on prescription medication, using it not for recreation, but as a crutch to get through the relentless demands of life and music. At his lowest points, Orbison admitted to thoughts of abandoning music entirely, and even contemplated ending his own life. The tragedies he endured, from the loss of his wife to the death of his children, left scars that no fame or success could erase. Outwardly, he maintained an image of resilience, standing on stage in black, shielded by his dark glasses. Yet inside, he was waging a constant battle with despair. This duality, strength in public, fragility in private, makes Orbison's artistry all the more poignant. His songs of heartbreak and longing were not just crafted performances, they were echoes of his own hidden suffering, transformed into music that continues to move the world. Roy Orbison's last days revealed. The late 1980s were hailed as a glorious comeback for Roy Orbison. His work with the Traveling Wilburys and the impending release of his album Mystery Girl painted a picture of triumph and renewal. To the outside world, it seemed the Caruso of rock had finally found peace after decades of tragedy. Yet behind this resurgence lay a much darker reality. Orbison was exhausted, still carrying the weight of grief from his past losses, and struggling with untreated heart problems. Despite the adoration of peers and a new generation of fans, his body was failing under years of emotional and physical strain. On December 6, 1988, Orbison died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 52, just as his career was soaring again. The shocking loss revealed the harsh truth. What the world celebrated as a rebirth was, in reality, the last flicker of a life lived in quiet torment. The so-called mystery of Roy Orbison was finally unveiled. His music was not only art, but also a series of pleas for relief, the cries of a broken soul disguised as timeless ballads. If Roy Orbison's story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more timeless legends and heartfelt journeys.